Hello, everyone, and welcome to How I Built This Quarantine Edition. How is everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm a little tired this morning, didn't sleep so well. But we are here to talk about how businesses are building resilience during this moment of crisis. And just a reminder, we're taking your questions via Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. So please start asking questions for our guest, Steve Holmes, today. Joining me for our chat is, in fact, Steve Holmes. He's the co-founder of Springfree Trampoline. This is a trampoline that was invented by an engineering professor in New Zealand named Keith Alexander. We actually told Steve and Keith's story on How I Built This back in April of last year. And if you haven't heard it, it's such a great story, and it's worth checking out to find out how they created this company. Springfree Trampolines, if you don't know, they have no metal springs. They get their bounciness from fiberglass rods that are underneath the jumping platform. So you're just on a platform jumping. And according to the company, it's what makes their trampolines safer than others. Nowadays, there are, as many of you watching know, there are millions of kids who are stuck at home in quarantine. And so there has been a huge demand for trampolines. People want trampolines in their backyards, but there's also a huge backlog. And Steve will tell us a little bit about that. Steve, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Great to be here. Nice to see you again. And as you mentioned, Dr. Alexander, I bring you greetings from him. It is 4 a.m. there, so he said he was waking up to see us.
He is in New Zealand at the moment, which is, we'll talk about New Zealand because a lot of your products are made there, your components. Steve, you are in Toronto right now?
I am in Toronto, quarantined. The office here is closed, but I'm here with just a few people. And so we're trying to navigate as best we can. And we have a great group of people that are working from home. And so, it's we're doing
so you're going into the office.
I am coming into the office. I have a very tight circle. So my circle is my wife in the morning, about 2 or 3 people who are about 10,000 square feet away, and my wife in the evening. So my circle's pretty small, but I feel like when I'm here, I can contribute in a meaningful way. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And you've got a trampoline in your office.
I have a few, but unfortunately right now they're getting disassembled more quickly because people are buying them. So the models that are sitting in the warehouse, there's no point in staying here. So
my God.
We're trying to get it in backyards.
Okay, so that leads me to my first question, which is, tell me about demand. Compare demand right now to demand at this time last year.
300%.
300% demand.
Yeah.
Wow. And your explanation is, what's your explanation for that?
There's no question that, it's really important for me to say this. The explanation is that families are experiencing a new type of pain. We've had so many stories that trampolines weren't part of their family plan or their journey, but staying at home wasn't either. Or stopping organized sports wasn't either. And so we became part of that solution. And in fairness, if you go back to the business model canvas and the value proposition design, families were looking to relieve a pain, and we were trying to create an opportunity for real family unity. And so, we're working with families to try and say, hey, this is a solution, and we're here to try and make it as accessible and as good as possible. So that whole COVID thing started, and when that shutdown started, we saw that ramp up in demand.
Wow. Is that my Microsoft open or your Microsoft open? It keeps buzzing.
It might be me, and I don't know how to
turn that on.
I'm not that capable.
Okay. All right. Tell people to stop emailing you.
I hope so.
So all right, 300% demand. That's crazy. Obviously, you've got millions of people stuck at home and kids stuck at home. And if you're lucky enough to have access to a small space in your backyard, you could put a trampoline up there. By the way, I've gotten people asking me about apartments. Could you actually put a trampoline in an apartment? Do you make small enough trampolines that could fit in an apartment?
Well, the answer is probably, but I think you're thinking of the movie with Tom Hanks, Big, and so we don't want to get that big in an apartment unless you got that ceiling height. But we make some very small trampolines. we don't make a fitness rebounder per se, because our focus is towards that family fun and the kids. And so we've got some very small trampolines. I hadn't thought about it for an apartment, but that doesn't mean it's not possible.
It's not right. It could be possible because you think about a place like New York, and most people live in apartments, so just the option of a trampoline is not realistic. But if you live in a part of the U.S. or in Canada where you do have a bit of space in the backyard, you could get one. You make different sizes. You make
we make from 6 feet up to 13 feet, and you have a big range of sizes and options and different shapes. And so our focus is trying to find the solution that works for your yard, because everybody has different configurations. I can tell you that because our boys are in school all day. I mean, they're doing distance learning, so they're on their Zoom, and then they've got work, but there's a schedule, there's recess, and they have different recess times. I mean, I'll go out and like one of my kids is on the trampoline, and then he'll go in, and then the other one will come on the trampoline and bounce up and down. So it's been great to have that trampoline that takes up our entire backyard, because we have a tiny little backyard, but the trampoline has like been a lifeline. So super happy I have it. Tell me, given that there's such crazy demand, what kind of wait times are there to get a Springfree now? Like normally you order Springfree, you get it a week later. What is the wait time now? Well, I mean, I think right now, for instance, we are working really hard to try and make sure that we meet customers' expectations and not set expectations that we fail from. So we just look at we create a wait list, but our focus is if we know that there's product coming within a very short period of time, then we contact that wait list, and then they're in a position to create a pre-order. And so to answer your question, I don't know how long the wait is, because I actually, as of today, don't know how big the list is.
Wow.
But
this is the wait list. This is not the order list. This is the wait list to be able to order one.
That's right. Yeah. And I can't tell you how big that is right now. Let me just say, can I do this if it's okay?
Sure.
I'm a student of business, and so every day I'm going to school. And so first and foremost, I want to thank you, because your two podcasts are one of my classrooms, and so no one could have understood how this was all going to navigate. And so every day it's like coming to school, and we're trying to do the best we can and to try and work and meet the expectations of our customers, and we're trying to make sure that we do it by valuing our employees at the same time. And so it's we're not perfect, but we're sure trying to make it as good as we can.
Steve, tell me why there's a backlog right now? I mean, I understand there's high demand, but are there supply chain issues? I mean, your trampolines are made in China. The fiberglass rods are sourced from New Zealand. They're made in New Zealand. They're super high tech. So those are shipped to China, then they're put together, and then they're presumably shipped flat to the US or to Canada.
Yeah.
Is the operation running as normal right now, the supply chain?
Well, I mean, let me give you, if I can. I was in China on January the 16th, and there's lots of people who have lots of things to say about China, but we built our own factory in 2008, and I want to tell you the 240 employees that are there, they're family. I mean, so we were there celebrating Chinese New Year's with them and their families. And I came away, and I do every 2 weeks, I send out a video to the entire company and all the staff around the globe. And I said, what a great year we've had. This has been really good. We've made some huge strides. That was January 16th.
Yeah.
February 2nd, Guy, I had 25 of my senior staff from around the world together, and we were trying to figure out, what do we do? China's just been starting to close down.
Wow.
And so we thought, maybe it'll only be an extra week. Or maybe it'll be 2 weeks. And in the end, we weren't allowed to even come on property until March the 16th. We had
your factory was closed for 6 weeks?
Well, really more than that. We closed from the 16th of January to the 16th of March before we were really allowed back on premises.
So it was dark.
Yeah, but well, that's not true. Interestingly enough, it's tragic on some fronts, but there was about 35 employees who had not gotten out before Chinese New Year and were actually locked down in the factory and weren't allowed to leave.
Wow.
And so we had to make sure they had food supplies. And one of the great things about what we do is we have a community chat around the globe, but specifically for all the Chinese staff, and they check in every day. So
Yeah.
we knew the health of everybody. We knew where they were. And so that was the start, right? And what was interesting is before Chinese New Year, we always build up.
Yeah.
Because we Chinese New Year, so we got some product into the United States. We actually had quite a bit of product. And then we saw the first wave of the shutdowns took place into Europe. And we went, oh, we better help Europe. And so we shipped some product out of the United States into Europe thinking, oh, we'll help get Europe and meet their demand. And then the wave started coming here.
Wow.
And it kept coming. And then what happened to us is New Zealand, as you may know, basically shut their entire country for 4 weeks. And so we had about 3 days notice that they were going to shut the country for a month. And so we had to ship out 3 containers of rods. So I got to tell you, the people in this organization, in our supply chain and our logistics and our manufacturing, they've done amazing. So we're back up and we're producing probably 25% more than we were pre-COVID-19.
Right.
But one of the things about increasing capacity is we're actually not prepared to have any slip on quality.
Right.
So this isn't about a rush to get stuff out. It's about making sure that we do it the same way and with the same quality.
Let's say today I wanted to order a Springfree trampoline for my backyard. Realistically, and I'm in the U.S., how long is it going to take? 8 weeks? 10 weeks?
I think you'll have it. My sales guy might run through the door here and shoot me or hit me, but I think you'd have it in June.
Okay, that's pretty good.
So I think you'd have it in June.
Yep. And until then, you could just do high knee jumps in your base.
And one of the things we want to be is one of the things we're trying to learn about this process. And if I could share with any of the other entrepreneurs that are out there, it's about being fully transparent. It's okay if there's conflict, but don't make promises. So we're trying to make sure that that's the way we focus. And so we're not I refuse to start taking people's money and not telling them when this is going to come or take a deposit. That it's just not right.
Right.
So we're working on it.
And the thing is, it comes to your house with instructions on how to put it together. As somebody who has one, I highly recommend you build it with a second person. It'll go a bit smoother, but it's super clear. A couple questions coming in for you, Steve. And please, if you've got questions for Steve Holmes about Springfree, about trampolines, if you're desperate for a trampoline and you want to say, Steve, I'm desperate for a trampoline, can you get me one? Now is the time to throw your questions out on Twitter or Facebook or on Instagram. On YouTube. Yes, YouTube. This one is from Jonathan Lander, and he asks, how has Springfree altered its distribution network during this moment of significant disruption in the operation of your distributors? So you mentioned you moved product out of New Zealand for one thing.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me just share. So we sell product around the world. We didn't know when this shutdown started to take place. We gathered as a senior management group, and we were actually worried about the opposite happening. That things would go and we wouldn't be able to ship trampolines, that lockdowns would take place and we wouldn't be able to ship anything. And so we kind of said, oh man. And I walked into the meeting and I said, look, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to do 3 things and we're going to do that well. We're going to turn product into cash. We are going to create cash as best we can. So if we have partners who have extended receivables terms, they're out. We're going to change our distribution strategy. We're not doing this on credit. We need to create cash. We need to preserve cash, and we absolutely cannot cut staff.
Right.
And number 3 is the reason we're doing this is not because we're trying to save ourselves. We're trying to preserve that cash that we might leverage going forward to be able to take advantage of opportunities wisely. So we cut out almost all of our big retailers. We had a big retailer right at the start who sent us a notice and say, we're 90-day terms with them. They paid us in 90 days. They sent us and they sent us a note and said, we're going to 180-day terms.
Okay.
And we said, have a nice day. You're not seeing
because you need the cash now, A, for a rainy day, and B, to ramp up more production, right?
Yeah, there's lots of things you need the cash for. One of the things is, if you remember, I came up with that strategy worried that we might get products shipped out there and turn it into a receivable, and then the receivable goes bad.
Yeah.
And And so I didn't want to do that. So we gave discounts, and we worked with our U.S. dealers and said, guys, how do we help you? You know, some of them don't have banks. And so that's how we changed our distribution strategy. We focused on direct to consumer, where we thought we could get the highest value and reduce our risk of having any losses.
Right, because in normal times you're selling to retailers, and you're basically floating them a loan, because they're not going to pay you for 90 days, now 180 days, and now you don't want to take the risk of not getting paid. You need the money to also, I'm assuming, preserve your workforce. Have you had any layoffs or furloughs?
No. Here, wow. I can tell you, we have an amazing team of people. I remember, I'm going to call. Pardon me if I get emotional, but
you get emotional every time I interview you. I love it. You're amazing. You cried in our interview. I love it.
Look, when it comes to people, the best part of business is people. Yeah. I said to my staff the other day, I'm standing here in the office doing a video, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I don't even know how I'm contributing, but they were killing it out there, servicing people. Guy, it's interesting. We never really used to get a lot of telephone calls.
Yeah.
We never got a lot of telephone calls. People came online. Well, when you have people who have a need like this and they have a sense of urgency, they're happy to do business online, but they actually increase their desire to talk to people. So when our retail stores shut down, those people stepped up. They got on the phone. We were running, 700, 800 calls a day, not missing one of them. And, you don't lay those people off, Guy. Those are the people you build the future on. Those are the guys you go to those are the men and women you go to war with. I remember, I'm going to call her out because I said I wasn't. She's ready. Austin, Texas got shut down really quick.
You have a store in Austin, Texas.
We have a store in Austin, Texas. It got shut down real quick. And Phyllis, who runs that store, was kind of thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And here's what we know about our three staff. If I can teach any entrepreneurs about their people, there's three things they want to know. They want to know, what's my job? How does it impact the company? And minor, how do I get paid? Interesting, if you go back to Dan Pink, on what motivates people, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, we think there's three pillars to that. Yeah. You're motivated, you've got competency, and all you need is clarity.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I have so many people who have that motivation and that competency, and we're just giving them clarity, and we're asking them to rethink their jobs in new ways, and they're doing it. We're doing stuff online we didn't even dream we knew how to do. So it's been real good for us.
So what's happening with those? Because you've got, I think, 9 brick and mortar stores in the U.S., and most of them are shut down. What are those employees? What are those employees doing right now?
I got to tell you, they're doing stuff that they're answering telephone calls. They're responding to chat. They're on emails.
Oh, cool.
They're helping with making sure that people who have got a trampoline got their installation properly done. They're following up. I mean, they are doing everything that I think ensures that we build a relationship which lasts with our customer.
And you've got 80, 90 employees total?
Oh, and more than that. Globally, we're way more than that. I think we're well over 400.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, but everybody's with us, and we're, one of the things that's fun. I got to tell you a fun story. In that February meeting, we were talking about cost savings, et cetera, and collectively the team said we have to do everything we can to support the Chinese employees. So we never took them off payroll. We paid them for the entire 10 weeks. Wow. And when they came back to work, we found out that we were probably the only company in the entire city that had kept paying. Then here's what I got to tell you. Then this virus starts coming the other way, and people get shut down. And our Chinese employees find out that people are shut down. And what do? They say, what can we do? Can we get you some masks? Can we do anything? Can we get you some sanitization products? And that was our Chinese staff looking out for the people around the globe. So it's been real joy.
It's awesome. And just a reminder to anyone watching, you should check out the How I Built This episode with Steve and Alex, Dr. Alexander, Keith Alexander from last year, I think last April of 2019. It's in the podcast queue. It's such an amazing story about how this product came to be and how these two men came together to build a company that's super, super ethical and just really interesting and makes a really high quality product. Let's take some questions from our viewers. This one comes from Bandita Sharma Dahal. Very simple question: Where can we order a trampoline? So one way is to go to Amazon and look at the trampolines there. And but if you wanted to order from you, you would go to your website, presumably.
Yeah, website or any of our website. Our telephone numbers are in. If they're in an area where we have a dealer, they're happy to reach out to those guys. They are the best. We've had some phenomenal relationships. They serve us so well. So, lots of people think, well, I want to go direct. What I will say to you is our dealers, they've stepped up, really.
Yeah. And anyone who's got questions on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, please ask away. We're taking your questions. This is a question you get a lot, Steve, from Erica Evans. We addressed this in our podcast when we interviewed you, but an important question nonetheless. How do you compare your trampoline to others when it comes to safety?
Well, Erica, we've removed all of the hard surfaces. So we took away the springs in the frame from the jumping surface, and we took away the steel poles for the enclosure. So we've taken away the design, or I should say Dr. Alexander, and he spent 11 years saying, I want to make a safe trampoline. And you should know, if Keith was on the call, and Guy will admit to this, Keith would say his number one priority is to try and make all trampolines safe. Because he thinks that's what kids deserve. But so from us, we took away everything that is hard.
Yep. And so just to add to that, when you jump on the trampoline, there's no springs. You're just jumping on a jumpy platform because the springs are essentially underneath, but they're not metal coil springs like the ones you see on a normal trampoline. They're actually these rods, these bendable rods made from fiberglass that just jump up and down. And then, of course, the trampoline is surrounded by a net. So, it's a
flexible net from our perspective. You can throw yourself into it and it brings you back, and you can't hit anything. So, And one of the things that also makes us different is we believe that when you buy a Springfree trampoline, you put it in your backyard, it look the same 10 years later. So we get, it's interesting. You may remember your podcast with the Patagonia founder, and he used the phrase that, we don't sell our apparel and goods. We rent it for life to people. And we walked away from that, hearing that, and we had these varying warranties. Pardon me for my email.
That's right.
These varying warranties. And we came away and said, why are we doing this? We believe in this thing for 10 years. So we give a 10-year warranty across the board. And so that's a big difference, I think.
Do you know, in January, you could have gone on Craigslist and bought a Springfree trampoline on the secondary market. And now I think it's pretty much impossible to find them on the secondary market. It's like a gold rush for trampolines right now, Springfree trampolines. So how long before Steve, before you think that, look, you got 300% increase in demand. How long before it gets back to a cycle where you can fulfill that increased demand relatively quickly? Will it ever happen?
Well, remember, the first thing I want to say, we're generally very small in the scope of the trampoline market. And so our focus is to try and drive the highest value with our product. And some people find that, boy, that's just too big of a nut. And we try and share with them, hey, there's no maintenance. It's 10 years. You're going to get a lifetime, and that's safety. So we think we have huge value. So for us, we hope that we're back into our situation come fall. But one of the things that we're sensitive about is we don't know what the impact is going to be coming out of this. I shared with you before we got on the air that I don't believe that we're going to come out of this with government stimulus. I think that the heart of American enterprise comes from entrepreneurs and people looking at creating and inventing new ideas. I did say to my wife last night, and you've met my wife, I said to Cheryl, I said, do you know what? Guy may be so busy because there may be so many new inventions. I hope he has too much content to pick from on how to build this.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. I think this pause, this crisis, is going to create a whole new series of inventions and ideas and innovations, because people, for the first time in many years, for so many people, are being given time to just think. Well,
I think it's an extension of something else too, Guy, and that is that a lot of big corporations are required to hit quarterly numbers and performance. And I think a lot of people are going to get laid off. And when they do, some of those people are going to say, you know what? I've been wanting to do something, and I think I can do it. And I think that some of that continuity is going to come out. So it's not just the ideas that have been sitting at home. It's also the ideas that are going to get generated from people who really have that skill set and haven't taken that step.
Totally. I totally agree. Let's go to one more question from our audience. This is from Colette Wu. And this is something we talked about in the podcast, but a really good question. How did you get your first 10 paying customers in the beginning? How did you convince people to pay? Because your trampolines, I should mention, these are not cut rate trampolines. These are premium trampolines. They are more expensive than the average trampoline. So how are you able to convince the first 10 buyers to buy it?
Well, I think, if people do listen to the podcast, it's kind of funny. We really tried to go out to some various shows. We went to what was called the Super Show, the SGMA, Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association. And we started in Vegas and came away with no sales. And then we went back a year later because we, put on an enclosure. And what our focus at the time was, as you know, Guy, was to try and build a relationship with Costco. So before we had actually ever sold a trampoline to a single person, we had sold our first 400 to Costco.
Yeah, and as you find out in the episode, eventually Costco kicked you out, which could have devastated your business, but it didn't because you pivoted. And you sounds like you are making some really important changes and pivots now, which I think is really important. And also this idea that this moment and people losing their jobs will actually lead people to and force people to think creatively about what they will do, about their futures, is so important. One of the things that I've been talking to a lot of founders lately, and we're going to have a lot of them on the show over the next couple of weeks on this live conversation. And a lot of companies are really getting hit. A lot of companies that have been on How I Built This, as you can imagine, are really taking a hit. And I think that I come back to this idea. I come back to is, even if your business collapsed, right? God forbid it does, but even if it does, your talent, the ability your ability that enabled the creation of that business, your drive, your resilience, your hustle, that doesn't go away. That can't be fired, right? That's still there. And that to me is,
and I really share this story, but in 1995, I had that collapse. My business was there. And I remember phoning my dad, who's passed away, and trying to tell him I was failing and I was in this crisis. And he said, "What are you talking about? Your mother and I love you. Your wife loves you. Your kids are going to love you. God loves you. Get at it. Go back to school." I mean, in his school, is get back into work. And my dad was a minister, so business wasn't his thing. And but that wisdom was, you can be resilient. You can see its way through it. And I've been passionate about so many people the last few weeks who are in business, who are struggling and really struggling. And one of our businesses is really struggling. We're in the footwear and apparel business. Retail's closed. We just won't ship in anything. I mean, we'll only be 15% of last year's sales. And I've been talking to lots of those guys, and I keep encouraging them the same time, every time. Get up every morning, set a focus, learn something new, apply it, record it, and keep going, because people will be with you in this journey.
I love it. Steve, I want to just shout out to a couple of people watching. We had a lot of people watching, and a lot more will watch the recorded version of this. Jeremy Lucas in Dallas, Fort Worth, thank you. Springfree Trampoline team in France has been watching. Hello there, bonjour. Brian DeGrange in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sagur Sanju in Whitby, Ontario, Canada. Stuart Sykes in Mexico City. Jeff Model in McKinney, Texas. Drew Peaver in Atlanta. We got George and Linda Butts in Boise, Idaho. Some more Canadians, Sarah Jennings Kuntz and David Swanick in Oakville, Ontario. On and on. We got Sherry Paul in Juneau, Alaska. Megan Elwood in Calgary. Yvette Kane in Nova Scotia, Colette Wu, of course, she asked a question, in Taiwan. Thank you so much to all of you for watching. A couple quick things before we go. We have a brand new episode of How I Built This out this week on the podcast. It's with James Park, the founder of Fitbit. It is an incredible story. He's inspired by the Nintendo Wii to invent the Fitbit. At one point, it controlled 70% of the smart tracking market, and of course has had some troubles in recent years, but it's a great story. He's an amazing person. Tomorrow, we're going to have a bonus episode that will drop on your podcast feed. This is from my conversation last week with Chef Jose Andres during our food week. We will be back here live, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, right here on this Facebook or YouTube or however you're watching it, with Stuart Butterfield, the founder of Slack. We profiled him on How I Built This. They are obviously now sort of at the leading edge of what the future of work might look like. So join us. It's May 1st. It's Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. You can see all of our previous conversations if you go to facebook.com/howibuiltthis and just click on videos. You don't need a Facebook account to join or to see it. And that's pretty much it. Steve, before I let you go, briefly, 5 years from now, you're looking back on this incredibly historic moment. What is it that you wanted to take away from it? How do you want this to change who you are, how you do business, how you think about your place in the world?
Well, look, it's not about me really. It's really both about the staff that I represent. Like, I'm just one guy here, and hey, if you get to call out some people watching, I get to call out some people who are critical, which is every one of our employees. And so 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and say we've created some safe backyards. We saw them through this tough journey. They've still got it. They're still loving it, and we're still servicing them. And hopefully we're using it to leverage new opportunities, because that's one of the things we think we still can do, is add value and find new opportunities and try and deliver them to families.
I love it. Steve Holmes, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We'll stay in touch. It's so great to see you. I love Springfree Trampolines. So fun. I jump on mine all the time, actually every day. But congratulations. And hey, trampolines, if you're interested in trampolines, look out in the world. Hopefully the wait list might not be too long, but
we're working hard.
We're working hard. Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Great to see you.
Bye.